It's so funny because sometimes like I'll psych myself out for videos and I'm like, oh, I need to make this big list of stuff to talk about, and oh man, what am I gonna talk about? And then like all of a sudden I'll get like a phone call or some scenario where I'm like, that's what I'm gonna talk about. And that's exactly what happened this time. Like, I had this really weird thing happen this week, and I thought I would like kind of share it with you guys to just give you some insight on advice. Paranormal, legality. There have actually been cases where documented paranormal has been used in a state of law or in court in order to sue a landlord or a business or a location to get out of a lease because of paranormal activity. I am not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. I have never been at place for any of these hearings, so please don't ask me legal advice because I can't give you any legal advice on paranormal stuff. I have actually gotten into like some serious, like in-depth philosophical conversations with people wanting to know about like, oh, does a judge really approve it? Well, I can tell you, yeah, there have been cases where judges have approved it. I haven't been there. I don't practice law, so I can't answer any of those questions. But I can tell you that I have actually participated in helping. I would say it was like probably four cases I think that I know of where I went in with my team. We documented paranormal evidence, and people took it to court, and they got out of the lease. Like the landlord would sue them for like the first month deposit and first month's rent or whatever. And then if they got out of the lease early, the landlord would want the full year's rent, right, or whatever. I have helped just provide documentation. I haven't actually ever had to be in court or take the stand or anything like that. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not going to mention locations. Before I go into investigate, when I get like the initial phone call, of course I'm going to do like an in-depth interview or interviews, or I'm going to want to talk to witnesses. I'm going to call local libraries, museums, especially if it's far away. In this particular case, it was far away. I found out this area of land had been notoriously haunted for hundreds of years. In fact, they presumed in the library archives of this location that there may have been witch hangings in like the late 1800s where this location was. This woman calls me really, really frantically, and she's having some really terrible things happen. Her dog is getting sick. It's costing her a bunch of money in vet bills. There's like violent objects being thrown, doors being slammed, mirrors being broken, glasses exploding, all of these really dramatic things. So I always like do a couple of interviews. I'll never just jump and go drive like 5 hours away because it's just, you don't want to waste gas money, and it could be dangerous if you're not really checking into the location. And so one night she calls me and she's crying because there's this crazy stuff going on. And I can hear in the background that her husband is kind of having this like freak out. And from what I can tell, I can hear him yelling and stuff. So finally she says she's going to hand him the phone. So I had never interviewed this guy, so he gets on the phone with me. And I don't know if he was hysterical or possessed, but he's talking about, this kind of stuff doesn't happen in his house, and he's never witnessed it, and he grew up to not believe it, and blah, 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 and kind of went off. I can't even really explain to you how, but he's like cussing, and he's acting pretty erratic. So I got off the phone with her, and I told her, I said, before I come up there, before I make plans to come up there, I'm going to give you some tools, and I want to see what happens when you use these tools. And the tools that I talk about usually are like prayer with like, and I'm not talking like in depth like a big Catholic prayer that's like 20 minutes long. I'm talking about like St. Michael stuff. So I told her, go to Walmart and buy St. Michael candles, get some St. Michael medallions. I actually looked up a store in her city for her where they sold blessed medallions, and I told her that she needed to, really get familiar with the prayer and don't be afraid to call for help from above and all that stuff. And there were some more in-depth things, but I told her I just wanted to see what would happen with the activity if she did that. If she did that before I took the time out of, my team's week to drive all this way. So A few days later, she calls me and she's pretty hysterical and she's having some more events. And I said, okay, then, we're probably going to go ahead and make a trip up there. And I said, what is your, what happened after you used the tools that I gave you? Did you have, success when you were using St. Michael? Because all of the times I've used St. Michael, it's always been great. Like, I've had really great outcomes. I've never had negative outcomes. And she decided to tell me that they were, I can't remember if she was like agnostic or atheist. Actually, I don't even think she told me that. I think she said she just didn't she didn't feel comfortable saying prayer. And I was like, uh-oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know how I'm going to help you guys then, because you're wanting this out of your house, and, you're the only one that's really there permanently, day in and day out. I can't stay with you for a month and try to help cast this thing out. So if you're not willing to help yourself, there's really no way that I can help you. And in the meantime, she told me she thought that her husband was, like, becoming violently possessed by this thing, and there were some strange things going on. I got really nervous because I didn't understand if they were having problems in their marriage, and that's what kind of caused this negative energy to come about. I don't really know what happened. I do know that, from the archives, that the land had originally been haunted, and there were some really bad things that happened on the property. But she told me, should I leave and get out of my lease? And I said, yeah, I mean, you can try to just pick up and go, but she's like, well, will you help me get evidence? And I said, I don't think it's safe for my team to come up there. I just felt like I mean, it's really, guys, one of the rare occasions that I've turned down going to do an investigation. Like, I'm the first person to help everybody. Like, I don't want anyone to suffer, especially animals and kids. When animals and children are being affected in a haunting, like, for some reason I get really bothered by it, and I feel like I really have to get involved. But I was really kind of afraid for my team. Like, I don't know if her husband was just violent. I don't know if they were having marital issues. I don't know if he was possessed. And, she wouldn't take my advice. And I just felt like it was going to kind of be useless to go up there. I am not here just to go document evidence. I want to help people, And if you're not willing to help yourself, I don't really know what I can do. Like, you guys, I'm not one of those investigators. I am not here just because I want to go experience a haunted house. Like, I've experienced that enough, like, hundreds of times. I already know that things exist beyond our existence and, like, beyond our realm. So I don't need to just go up there to go play ghost hunter and we all gather your gear and let's go up here. I don't need to do that. I've done that enough. That's not fun for me anymore. I've now graduated to a level where I feel like people need to understand that if you can communicate with this stuff, like, even just from a paranormal perspective, I'm not even talking as a psychic. If you can communicate, you have a gift, and it's not scary. It is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, because 90% of the time, you're not going to run into a demon. 90% of the time, it could be a pissed off spirit. Anyway, rant over. So I just felt like I couldn't help her. And I told her, if she felt like she could be strong enough to do some prayers, then I said, so if you feel like you can't do this, the next step, even if I'm not coming up, you can find a psychic medium to come in, or you can find a priest to bless the house. So she did end up having a priest bless the house. And she had a psychic come in. I don't know if this psychic was legitimate or not. I'm really iffy when it comes to psychics, but I do know that the activity picked up after the priest left, which is common. I mean, that's something that we see all the time. I still was not willing to go up there for the safety of my team because I thought that her husband was having some sort of a violent possession occurring, and I didn't want to put anybody at risk. That's not worth it to me. I'm sorry, and I don't want to waste the gas to go somewhere that we all end up getting violently mutilated, just from somebody we don't know. Long story short, she really wanted me ultimately to get her evidence on tape to help her in court. And it's a very rare occasion that I will do that. I always give a copy of the evidence to the homeowners or to the business owners after we leave. But for me to sign off on a liability for them to take it to court, that's another thing. And I was willing to help her, but she had to be willing to help herself first. And long story short, I didn't hear from her. That was the end of it. She did end up deciding to leave the property. It was getting really violent. I told her if it were me, I wouldn't want my dog to get sick and die, because she was afraid that was going to happen. And so she left, and everything was fine and everything normalized out. There still were some little things going on in her new apartment, which made me once again think there was an attachment with her husband, or poltergeist activity isn't always an actual entity. It can be manifested by your energy. And if her husband was as mean and angry as he seemed like he was, he could create that poltergeist activity on his own. And that's getting into kinetic energy and physics and all kinds of stuff that I'm not going to get off track right now. I heard from her the other day, and she's a little bit hostile because apparently the guy sued her, and she has to go to court for it. So my long story short for you guys is I probably will not ever get re-involved with legal stuff when it comes to paranormal anymore, and that's because the liability falls heavy in your lap. And I still feel bad that I couldn't help her, and I've lived with that guilt almost every day, honestly. No, that's being overly dramatic. I don't want to say every day, but it did cause me to start wanting to learn more about demonology because I wasn't well versed in it. And I personally, I don't want to learn about demonology because I like darkness. I feel like it is irresponsible as not only a lead investigator, but also an investigator to not know everything about the realm of the other side, because the truth is, when we go in as investigators to a location, you never know what you're encountering. I mean, you don't see them per se. You're not sitting there having a conversation back and forth. You don't know what you're interacting with. So it's kind of reckless for you not to know about every spectrum. And I'm not saying that I know everything still, because there is so much to know, and it's still a revolving door, but just stay out of the legal stuff, guys. It'll make your life so much easier and help people through this stuff, because that'd be my biggest suggestion. Don't make it about you get to experience their haunt or whatever. Don't make it a selfish issue. Make it about them. And I mean, if you know anyone, or if you yourself have ever lived in a haunted place or with stuff moving around your house, it is very, very stressful and tiring. And do it to help people. Do it for good. If you have that gift to interact, even if it's just as an investigator on a science side like myself, do it for good. Do it to help people. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, like my video, give me a thumbs up, and contact me. Write me a message in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys. So I'll talk to you later.